Hello, everybody. My name's Rick, and this
I'm
is
Lilly the Cat. How are you? How are you? Lily, down.
I was hoping we could talk to Lily today, but apparently we're stuck with you, Dave.
Yeah, well, no, I'll pass on a message to her and report what she says back to you. Good morning.
Afternoon.
Evening. Good night, everyone.
Okay, so yet another unscripted show. We did sort of have a topic in mind, and that's pretty much it. We're going to talk about the gatherings that we've been to. So I've been to 3 polyglot gatherings in Europe, which two in Berlin and one in what's that other place? Bratislava. And probably another one in Bratislava next year. Dave's done much more than me, and I wanted to sort of get your feelings for how these sort of polyglot gatherings differ from sort of academic conferences and the sort of Langfest in the US and the other language conferences, basically. I mean, I get the impression, and you can sort of confirm or deny, that the gatherings tend to be much more practical applications of how to learn a language as opposed to passing on linguistic knowledge of, or other more esoteric, shall we say, things.
Yeah, I would say esoteric. Yeah, probably more complicated or theoretical ideas. So I've been to the ICLDC, which is the International Conference for Language Documentation and Conservation. I've been to 2 of those throughout the years. They put them on in Hawaii at the University of Hawaii in Manoa, and they're more for the academic crowd. They're more for people in school. I hear noises. So they're not for everyone. I think the polyglot events that we go to. I mean, we should clarify that these gatherings are of different names. One of which is the Polyglot Gathering. The polyglot events that we tend to kind of run into each other at are, I think, a bit more for they're lighter, they're more fun, I think, in some ways, and they're definitely more geared towards the casual language learner or the casual polyglot wannabe.
Right. Well, it's okay to hear noises. It's just when you start hearing voices that you have a problem.
Learn Estonian.
All right. So I mean, basically, for anybody who hasn't been to a polyglot gathering, I can sort of give you the format of that, like the ones in Berlin and Bratislava. Although Bratislava was quite a bit bigger, they ran out of room in Germany, I think, because they were starting to limit the numbers of people that could go because they just couldn't cope in the 3 sort of small rooms that they had available. And in Bratislava, they did use the university, so they had 4 sort of enormous lecture halls, as well as sort of half the student building and areas for breakouts and snacks and sandwiches and all that sort of stuff. Little areas where the students obviously sit and talk and that sort of thing. The gatherings tend to be speeches by people who volunteer to do speeches or are requested by the organizers. There's probably not a lot of famous people, I would say. There are a few sort of more well-known YouTubers, certainly Luca, Benny, the Irish polyglot, and Steve Kaufman came to last year's. Can't think of anybody else. Forgive me. Sorry.
There are. I mean, I would think those are some of the bigger names. I see Lindsay Williams at these, and she's up there. I mean, she blogs a lot and definitely puts out a lot of material. You mentioned Benny. You mentioned Steve Kaufman. Tim Keeley. I think he was at this last one.
I've done it all of them, I think.
Yeah, and I think if you don't know the polyglot community, then some of these names may not sound familiar. But if you know anything about the polyglot community, you'll find that you'll recognize a lot of names. Gareth Popkins spoke. Sadly, Simon Agger of Omniglot.com fame, he was not able to attend. So, but he's usually at these things as well.
Yeah, he did the ones in Berlin, I know,
Okay.
and also Kirsten.
Kirsten
forget.
too.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people that go to these, and a lot of these people, their blogs and things and their speeches are orientated around how to learn a new language. So it's not you, although you will get speeches on endangered languages and all that sort of thing, it is really quite resource and methodology driven. So can you just give us a brief sort of overview of the more academic ones? Like how are they sort of scheduled? I mean, what types of venue do you get? You know, I know you haven't been to all of them, obviously, but
Yeah, I've been to a handful. They definitely vary in scope and size and in layout and format. The ICLDC in Hawaii, they are very similar to the Polyglot Gathering in that they will have several days of talks, and each time slot for a talk can have up to 7 different lectures in different rooms across the building or across campus or across whatever venue they have. And so you will have to be a lot more selective about what talks you're willing to miss. So, and they'll have talks about, clinics in Korean, or a talk I'm going to see at the Linguistic Society of America conference in January is Nyangi glides are not phonemes. And Nyangi is a dying language, pretty much a near dead language in Africa. And so they'll get more into grammar concepts and really theoretical concepts that people, the general public probably won't understand. It can be very technical, it can be very dense. But again, to reiterate, I'm going to grad school, so this is the kind of thing I need to pay more attention to. Whereas the gathering events are a bit lighter, they're more accessible. Pretty much anyone can kind of grasp most of what's being said, I think. So, but I have to say that the more technical and academic conferences, they're also a lot of fun. You do meet bigger names. Except they're names that are, of course, kind of relegated to this genre. So you'll meet Marianne Methuen or Lenore Grenoble, or sometimes David Harrison, and these are names that probably don't they're not recognized instantly by language enthusiasts, but they're my kind of idols.
So I'm going to assume, well, for people who don't know, if you go to a Polyglot Gathering, you'll probably get a mixture of languages. They won't all be in English. A lot of the lectures will be in French. A significant portion of them will be in, another language. So at a more academic link, just conference. Sorry, my dog's going to go off in a minute. More academic mode. Is everything in English, or do they branch out?
Generally, everything is in English. Cats. My cats are hearing your dogs. Generally, everything that I've been to is in English. If you go to a conference in a foreign language or in a foreign country, they may present in the language spoken there. But the ones that I've heard about, have always been presented in English, because you're going to get an international crowd. So
you. I lost the plot there, but So English is basically the sort of lingua franca of this thing. Now, I mentioned on the forum that I run the other day, we were having what's a polite word for argument? Don't know. Anyway, we had a discussion. But I take it that the vast majority of these sort of endangered languages, dead or dying languages, when you do documentation, is it documented all in English in order to disseminate the information to a wider group, or what?
Well, the nice thing is that you can document it in its own language, the International Phonetic Alphabet. So you have symbols for all these sounds that luckily translate across all languages. It's a language of its own, really, and so you can use that to share information with other other people who don't speak your language. But generally, everything I've seen has been in English. I think I've seen a few documents in either German or French, but I haven't been steered that way so much. So I'm sure there's a lot of research done in other languages. I'm sure there are French linguists, Italian linguists, Japanese linguists, and so their research will be written up in their language, and finding it translated may not be so easy. But if you can't understand the document, you can at least read the transcriptions of the language if it's done in the IPA.
Okay. Well, so I'm interested in although I'm calling them polyglot gatherings. I know in the US/Canada, they have a thing called Langfest. I think it was in Montreal last year. Mm-hmm. Did you attend that one?
I attended the one last year in 2016, and at the time it was called the North American Linguistic Symposium, or North American Language Symposium, NAPS for short. And since then they've changed it. So the name this year was Langfest. They changed it. So I was at the first one, but not the one this year. And for a first time, for going to the first run of it, it was very well done. It was 2 days, I believe, of language lectures and talks, and then hanging out with people afterwards and kind of rubbing elbows with the speakers. Benny was there. Steve Kaufman was there. Lindsay was there. I don't think I saw her present. Again, I think there was an overlap of lectures, so you had to choose wisely. But there were some number of names. Chris Broholm was there. I forgot to mention him earlier. He's kind of up there. He does actual fluency. So I really enjoyed it, but I was really disappointed because I'm sure it probably was even better this year, and unfortunately it conflicted with my schedule, so I couldn't go.
Have you done any of the ones that Richard Simcock ran? Like the one in Iceland, I can't remember what it was called now.
That is the Polyglot Conference, and that is one that I only started learning about these events right after the one in New York in 2015. And I heard about it after it happened. I was very, very disappointed, very jealous of everyone who got to go. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll go to the one next year. And unfortunately, another schedule conflict. And then the one this year, let's see, last year was in Thessaloniki, Greece. This year was in Reykjavik, Iceland. And they moved around every year. So it's nice that it's in a new place. Had I known about it earlier, I easily could have made the New York one in 2015. But I've never been, dying to go. I hear wonderful things. But my understanding is it's only 2 or 3 days as well, so it's a little shorter than the gathering, which is full 4 days, I believe. No, I've never been and would love to go. How about you? You've been to 3 polyglot gatherings, and you haven't been to anything in Montreal yet, and you haven't been to the Polyglot Conference, the Richard Simcock.
No, I have been to Montreal, but it was mostly a pub. Or 2.
Okay, that's why we didn't see you at any of the lectures. Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't actually go for a lecture, and I didn't actually speak anything other than English at the time. But the pubs and the beers are quite good in Montreal. But there you go.
Yeah, and the beers there, there are no language boundaries for beer.
Exactly. Yeah, because they don't. No, I haven't been to any of the others. I thought about going to the one in Iceland, but scheduling conflicts and work superseded that, so I couldn't get away. But yeah, I do enjoy the gathering ones because, like you say, they are a bit lighter. They're a bit more focused on practicalities, and it is nice to meet people that you sort of meet online and actually speak to them face to face and have a beer and all that sort of thing. So yeah, if you're considering going, I would, anybody who's actually watching this, I would definitely recommend it. It's well worth going. You do learn a lot and you meet a lot of people, and yeah, it's a bit mental. Although everything has a tendency to be in English, I have to say, which can be a bit of a disappointment.
Well, and they changed that a little this year. They seem to encourage more talks in a foreign language, and for those of you who have not gone or read about it, they also have an area outside of camp or outside of the building where this is hosted, and they make a non-English zone, and you basically go and you sit on benches or on the grass there, and if you speak English, you will get pelted with tomatoes and sticks, and it's nice that they're sort of encouraging this let's not do everything in English attitude. And I think next year they're trying to. I've heard whispers of wanting more talks in different languages, or having a lingua franca other than English, where people can communicate. But it tends to be really hard, don't you think? Because English is probably the most widely spoken language in the world, and when you have an event with people coming from all over the world, and many different countries, many different mother tongues, how do you communicate successfully with everyone simultaneously? It's a sort of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I got to say that the no English zone signs worked much better than the keep off the grass signs at people away. It's like, no, you're all right, thanks.
Well, you got to have one or the other. Got to choose.
Yeah, it was difficult because that's where the hammocks were. So if you wanted to actually relax a bit, you had to sleep in some other language.
If little Z's coming out of your mouth and they've got like a line through them, or a little hatch on top. I'm going to write that down. It's okay. All right, excellent. I'm going to make a cartoon. Excellent.
Yeah. So anyway, it's so those are the only ones I've been in done. We've had a couple attempts on our forum to meet up, and I think actually the Polyglot Gathering was sort of a meetup of the old How to Learn Any Language.com forum initially, because the vast majority of people there were members of that forum. So anyway, that's probably a bit too much now about that particular thing. I think next year is going to be nice. I definitely want to go. I want to try and do a presentation in French just to really make my head hurt and my eyes bleed.
Excellent. Okay. That'll be a good look for you.
yeah, exactly. And you're going to do one in Quiche, right? Is that the?
I'm going to talk about another language, but I'll talk about it in Quiche, and really just try and go for a smaller crowd than my talk this past year. So yeah, well, me. So. But yeah, now you gave a talk at the gathering this year. What did you talk about?
It was defined as nerd Anki.
by the lovely Kirsten Cable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My discussion was pretty much on again a practical thing about Anki decks are flashcards, electronic flashcards you can get on your phone and computer and et cetera, et cetera. And I talked about how you can do subtitles to SSRS. So you basically take a subtitled film and you convert that into flashcards so that you use the actual audio and photos from the film along with the dialogue in your target language and your native language to basically learn the film. But you're learning vocabulary through a film basically. And it's quite helpful, and it's useful because you get an actual native speaker. A lot of times, a lot of these sort of flashcards, electronic ones, they have a tendency to be done with computer voices. Mm-hmm. So you can make out what they're saying, but they're not speaking like a proper native speaker of the language would. They don't run their words together. They don't use slang. They don't do all that. They don't and ah and all this sort of stuff that we all do as human beings. But in a film, you do tend to get that. You don't get the and an ah because they're obviously professional actors, so they don't do it.
and it's highly scripted. So, So yeah, no, I enjoyed the talk. I'm not tech savvy at all, but I enjoyed learning more about Anki decks and how to upload stuff onto Anki, because I heard about it but never used it. So after seeing your talk, I went and downloaded Anki on my iPhone and paid the whopping $25 because for some reason, if you have an iPhone, you get charged for it. But otherwise, it's free, right?
Yeah, it's basically free on every platform except Apple. I think it's mostly because the guy, that's the way he gets his income. But the Android version is not written by him. It's written by volunteers who did it. So that's an open source thing written by volunteers. But I think he gives away the desktop version. So it's only the Apple phone, iPad thing you work. On my other channel, I actually give sort of tips about how to use software to learn languages. So recently I did a thing about how to use Audacity to slow down the audio so that you basically can reduce the sound, as much as you want, down to, but you don't want that. But anyway, yeah, there's other examples where you can get, you spoke about IPA. I show people how to get IPA for text and for their flashcards or to create dictionaries and all that sort of thing. But anyway, so that's a much more practical and focused on the practicalities of actually learning a language and actually using your computer and the software and the internet to do it or to generate resources for you. But films are great.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm still old school. I just watch films on DVD. I don't stream so much. And for my,
I thought you were going to say VHS then.
Oh, Betamax all the way. No, but the reason I do that is because I get my DVDs for, I get American movies, but the DVDs are purchased in, Europe, in Hungary, in Germany, and everything. So they come with all these different subtitles and all these different audio tracks in different languages. I have that MTV classic Pimp My Ride. I have the first season on DVD in subtitled in 20 languages, and it's great. So if I want to learn some some Estonian slang or Hungarian slang or Finnish or French or any of it, it's there. It's in the subtitles, and I find that the streaming videos nowadays online don't have all those languages. So it's one reason why I stay old school. And I also, like you were saying, Audacity, you can take an audio file, slow it down, but not change the pitch, which I think is critical. And so you can hear better. I do the same thing, but I have an actual physical device. It's a little thing about yay big. It's red and it's pretty, and it's for guitarists to put in their favorite CDs, and they can slow it down to keep the pitch the same, and then they can listen to a guitar solo or whatever and hear it note for note and slow it down and try and transcribe. I use that for the German version of Harry Potter because I have that on CD and can plunk it in. I have that on my iPhone too. I've actually turned it into an MP3 or whatever, but I still find that the hard copies are easiest for me. So are you strictly a new world tech guy with languages?
Oh, no way. I have lots and lots of books, actual physical books, carrying around with a pencil and underline what I don't understand and then look it up later in my nice paper dictionary.
Be right back.
Yeah, so basically, I use a lot of both technology and also sort of written word. For books, you don't need power, you don't need electricity. It's not going to run out of charge. You don't need to find the nearest output to plug it into. So yeah, and they don't take it away from you on airplanes. They don't confiscate it or anything. So yeah, a book is a nice fallback position for if you're going to have time. You're going to travel or commute or whatever. Take an actual paperback book with you. So.
Excellent. What are you reading now, paperback wise?
Ooh, paperback, nothing. At the moment, I'm just using my Kindle, and I'm reading Stephen King's The Dark Tower, the second book in French at the moment. Still, okay. I'm only at about 50% of the way through. Somebody gave me a recommendation for a really, apparently a really good book, which I'm looking forward to, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's by a French author, and it's a historical novel about the French royalty, sort of after, Edward, whatever his name, what was it? The guy who took over England, whatever.
Edward Finkelmeyer, I think that's.
No, that wasn't Finkelmeyer. It was the other Edward. No, it wasn't Edward. It was
Henry.
Something. William the Conqueror.
William, of course.
Or William the Bastard. Anyway, so it's basically fiction, but it's historically accurate. So it's historical fiction about the royal families and all of the intrigue and all of the stuff that they all got up to. And apparently, George R. R. Martin used it, read it, and it influenced him when he wrote sort of Game of Thrones.
No.
Apparently. So I'm quite intrigued about this. And I know absolutely nothing about the French royal family, so it should be interesting to get a bit of historical perspective on that. I'll try and find the name of it and stick it in the show notes somewhere.
Okay, excellent.
But I mean, do you actually read books and things? Because I know you're only sort of dipping in and out of languages. Possibly German. I think your German's a bit stronger than you tend to let on. But do you actually read books in any of these languages or attempt to?
I'm just doing German and Spanish, mostly for the challenge. I'm doing like Harry Potter books in German because I've got a number of those I want to get through. I have a lot of books written in English that are translated into German because I love having the English copy as well. So I love the parallel text. So I tend to lean towards whatever I can find in German that's available in English. So like Harry Potter, Old Man and the Sea. I think I have the Firm is on my list, the John Grisham novel. So I'm doing German and Spanish for the most part for reading. Not as much as I'd like. I don't think I'm going to make the challenge, but most of my reading has been movie subtitles in German and Spanish. But eventually, I would love to get to the point where I can read something in French or Navajo or any of those other languages. But the reading takes time. It's very easy to get some conversational skills going, but once you're reading, then it's a different voice altogether.
Well, once you start reading, your vocabulary will jump dramatically. You'll learn a lot of new words just through reading. So I got a question for you. These books you're reading, are they parallel text? Are they German on one page and English on the other?
I have a few of those books, but the ones that I'm mainly reading are just authentic German translations of Harry Potter or Old Man and the Sea. And if I want to, figure something out, if I want to see the English version, I actually have to go and open the other book, which is very minimal effort, but still it's effort, and it's enough to keep me from wanting to rely on the English right away. When I have the parallel textbooks with German on one side, English on the other, then it's really easy to go, oh, I don't know what that means, and then, kind of cheat and look at the other side rather than trying to find out on your own through context or trying to recall if you actually do know some of these words. So I do love parallel text, but side by side, I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to immerse myself solely in the German version and try and dig my way out.
So. Well, here's a really good tip for you. If you have a parallel text book, this is really good to do. Take it, open it up so you have the German page. Take a piece of paper, cover up the English, right, and translate the German into English. So, right. And the benefit of doing it from a parallel textbook is you actually have the answer key under the piece of paper. Seriously. So once you start, you can actually check and go, okay, well they use this word or they translated it this way, and I did, I completely screwed that up, or this is, wonder why they did that. It does help because then it forces you to sort of think about the way you're translating it, because you're not necessarily going to translate it word for word. I mean, how can you well, you can't translate "It's raining cats and dogs" word for word, but using whatever the German idiom is for
exactly. It's raining schnitzels and lagers, So.
Oh man, I'm going there.
Take me with you.
I could have watched the weather forecast.
Well, actually, that's a great idea for an exercise. That is a great idea. For me, it won't work for two reasons. Just yet, because first of all, I'm a college student, so not all of us can afford sheets of paper, Mr. Moneybags, but maybe someday. And then second of all, actually, that's a wonderful idea. And once I'm done with the challenge, I will head that route. But for now, I'm strictly doing the readings, just so I can knock the pages out and just kind of get vocabulary and get a flow. And this may sound childish, but I read out loud so I can get my mouth, used to these sounds and these words and everything. But once I'm done reading the books, I do want to go back and start going through and maybe rereading again, seeing how much I've picked up since the first reading, and turn them into an actual exercise. So then I will be stocking up on paper and doing a lot of that. So thank you for that. You should reiterate that in the show notes.
Yeah, but that's not a bad thing, reading out loud the foreign text, because I don't do that. And I have been told that my pronunciation is poor. because in my head I sort of pronounce it the English way.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because it's just easy to read, or it's just quicker to read. And because I read silently, it's not as good. So I have been told when you read in a foreign language, you should read it out loud. But, you know, I'm unlikely to change at this juncture in my life. Like I'm too long in the tooth for that now.
Well, I find it really helpful. I find it really gets my mouth going, and it really, although, I will say German, French is phonetic to a point, and there are a lot of rules where once you learn them, you know how things are spoken. But I find German even more so. And so for me, it's easy to see a word and identify how it's spoken right away, or at least the approximate of it. But with French, I have a harder time of pronouncing things a certain way because it's not fully in my ear. But I would imagine you probably have it in your ear a bit better. So if you did have to read out loud, you'd probably nail it about 95% of the time, no?
Yeah, well, it's easier for me now than it used to be. French isn't too bad. Italian is really easy because in Italian they don't have silent let. They have one silent letter, and that's H, and they only have it. So they put it in front in reading where the word would sound the same. So O, basically, and so they put it in there, but you don't say it. So they only have one silent letter. Everything else is pronounced. Everything else is pronounced in a standard way. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm told Spanish is the same, but I don't really know. But reading Italian, pronunciation is really straightforward. French, well, like they randomly pick which letter is going to be silent.
True, very true. Sometimes it's a whole string of letters, like ENT, verb endings is sometimes just dropped off, orally.
Yeah,
so
can't be bothered. Well, it's not going to say that. Can't be bothered. They ram them all together.
This letter you only say if the following has a vowel. Yeah,
ram them all together and say that all at the same time. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I think France's motto is, "Hey, at least our language isn't Danish." So they've got that going for them.
Yeah. I'll take your word for it. I don't know any Danish.
Nor do I, and that's why. So are you planning to go to the? You said you're planning to give a talk at this year's or next year's Polyglot Gathering.
Well, I'm hoping. They announced the dates. I think it's May. So if I can make it, I'm going to try, and I'm going to try another practical nerd. But I'll probably do something other than Anki this time. But yeah, some using software to learn a language, I think, is probably going to be the theme. I need to work on it, and so hence a lot of the things that I've been putting in my channel is along that line. So I'm actually using all these bits of software. I'm showing people how to use the software in order to develop the talk, so that I can, I have used it, I do use it, and speak with a bit of authority about how to install it, how to use it, all that sort of good stuff, or why you'd want to. But you can play games. I mean, the greatest thing is install games. Do that to show you how to do. Have you ever played a MUD, a multi-user dungeon?
I don't think no. Actually, I'll say no.
Okay. Well, basically, a MUD is like it's like one of those old text games you used to play, like Zork or whatever. Except there's lots of people in it at the same time.
Okay, I've done the single player ones, like turn left, pick up a sword.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So it's go forward, go north, go south, all that stuff. So that it's all that. Plus, there are other people playing at the same time. So when you walk into a room and you're going to pick up the sword or whatever, there may be two other people in there trying to get to it at the same time. So it's multi-user, so you can interact with them. So you can actually speak to these people. Well, you can type to them. But, if you have to type to them in French or Italian or German or whatever, you have to read the instructions. You have to read about the room. And it's all in the other language. But it's not reading a grammar book, It's a bit of fun. It's a game, and you have a bit of fun while you're learning a language. So, anyway, there you go.
Oh, excellent! It still sounds too high tech for me.
Well, the cost is good. They're free normally.
I can't afford that. I'm a student.
Yeah. I hear that a lot.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that I like as being a student is that now I can go to a lot of these events for a discounted price. I get discounted memberships. I'm really trying to take advantage of that. So I'm now a member of the Linguistic Society of America, LSA. Looking into a bunch more down the line before I graduate. And a lot of these provide gatherings, or they tie in with the LSA or other.
Can I just say, I think you should join the Linguistic Society of Denmark.
Really? Oh, okay. That's good. Let's give them some press. There we go. So
Well, it's just their letters are a bit more funny than yours.
Oh yeah, I think there's a meme that says, okay, like this first. Okay, so here's the front of the word, back of the word. So this part you don't pronounce. This part you pronounce as if you were drunk. This part I forget. They break it down into ways to pronounce it.
Oh, you're not getting what I'm saying. The abbreviation for the Linguistic Society of
Oh, excuse me, sir. I'm not into drugs.
All right.
I thought we were just bashing Denmark today. So.
Yeah, no, that's Chris Broham's job. That's not ours.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Chris. Yeah. Okay, well, I don't know how long we've been going. We've been rattling on here for a while. I think we've done our half an hour. So it's good to talk to you this week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, good to see you. And next week we'll talk about something else. Yeah.
All right. See you later, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe.
All right. Take care.